welcome. I am Derek Brown with the Utah Republican Party, and we are excited to have Brian Zehnder with us today, who's our candidate in Senate District 8. And Brian has previously served in the state Senate.
So in 2018.
2000, yes. And so you've done this. You know the system. You know how things work on the inside. And as I recall, I think you probably knocked more doors than I think all the other members of the Senate combined. I mean,
it was about 8,000 doors.
Was it 8,000 doors?
Altogether.
Individual doors? Because I remember seeing you in the middle of that, and your shoes were just like shot. I remember they were just like worn out, and you had been, and I don't know if you always were this healthy, or that was just, at the time was losing weight from, because I think you can't knock on 8,000 doors without.
I'm an ultra trail runner, so my trail running kind of went to just door knocking for about a 6-week period.
That worked. Did you actually jog in between houses?
No.
Did you? Oh, you didn't do that.
I did walk pretty quickly.
Did you? Well, you're a quick walker anyway.
The president walked with me one day, and he says, "I'm a pretty good athlete, and I'm struggling keeping up with you." So we hit a lot of territory.
You were fast. Well, you covered a lot, and you did a lot of great things in the state Senate, and let's talk today sort of about that, because I mean, you ran a fantastic campaign. This campaign is totally different.
It is.
And when you signed up to run in March, it was probably moments before everything sort of shifted. How was this shifted from that?
It was actually moments after I went to the last meeting up on the Hill. I went there for the last day just because I wanted to see some old friends. And COVID had just come out. The outbreak was just starting.
And you obviously were watching this because you're a doctor.
I was watching.
You're a physician, so you get this.
I was aware of what was happening. And what was happening on the Hill? People were shaking hands. People were giving hugs. There was no social distancing. People didn't know anything about that. And I left that day and I thought, we've got a pandemic starting here, and we don't know what to do up on the Hill.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of legislation that's going to be coming. There's a lot of health policy that needs to be made. And we don't have any physicians in the Senate making those decisions. Yeah. That's going to be a real problem for our state. And that's when I decided to jump in again.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you did, because it is, I mean, this has been, since then, the single biggest issue, right? Well, that's what everyone's talking about. So
that's what I tell people. I say, what do you need in a medical pandemic? You need a doctor.
You need a doctor. I mean, the policymakers are doing good stuff. They're making good decisions, but I think it's got to be driven by the science. It's got to be driven by the medicine.
Yes, science, data, and the facts need to drive our decision-making process. Mm-hmm. And that really needs to happen, whether it's in the school, or it's regarding our environment, or whether it's regarding our economy. We've got to have good science and data. And right now, everything is coming back to a health issue. You think about our economy. When our economy tanked, a lot of people were out of work. Well, depression and suicide go up when people can't work. So that's a real problem.
So it's not just a public health crisis. It's a mental health.
It's a mental health crisis
as well.
Mental health. We need to destigmatize mental health illness.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we're getting people the health care and the mental health care that they need on site in their place of where they work, rather than having to take time off, go clear across town and see a therapist or a psychiatrist.
Mention your background a little bit. Like, what is it you do in your practice? And you, I mean, I haven't actually been to your clinic, but I've talked to people who have, and they've said it's amazing what you've got going out there. Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm on the front lines. We have a staff of a couple dozen providers and support staff for them as well. We're in practice for our own, so we're not beholden to a big corporation taking care of us. We take care of ourselves. So we watch, just like any small business person, you watch the pennies and the nickels and the dimes and dollars.
You're a doctor and a business owner.
So that's really, really important. So I understand the medical aspects. I'm on the front lines every day. Every day we are taking care of people that are struggling with symptoms of coronavirus. So they come in, we do a telehealth visit first. Then they come in.
Oh, really? That's a prerequisite before they come in.
Most of the time.
And can you deal with a lot of things by telehealth?
We have an urgent care too for people that walk in.
Okay.
Well, people call up on the phone and say, "Hey doc, I think I might have COVID." We do a telehealth visit. We get the information and we say, "Yeah, you probably should be tested. Come on to the back of the parking lot," and we do drive-up swabs.
You do the testing there, then?
Yes.
Okay.
In the clinic or in the parking lot every day at 12 p.m. And some days we have 2 or 3. Some days we have a couple dozen. and then they get those results back, usually 48 hours later. So it's a great way to serve the community doing that. So I'm on the front lines every day. We're doing that. And in addition to that, I'm still taking care of my sore throats, ear infections, and now the flu season's coming. And
so you see a lot more flus.
So a lot of people are coming in and they say, I don't know, do I have the flu? Do I have COVID? Do I have strep? Or is it just some allergies? Those are hard decisions.
Yeah. And so what is it that, what do you think that we're doing well as a state, and where can we do better? Because I love you. You're someone who gets kind of the policy side of things as well as the medical side, and which makes you kind of unique in that arena.
Yeah,
what can we do?
The state has done pretty well making sure that our economy keeps going. That's Utah's, as we know, is top or 1 or 2 in the economy in the United States. I don't know, last 3, 4, or 5 years. So we're making good economic decisions, trying to keep people at work. I think where we're missing the boat a little bit is on medical input into these decisions. Someone needs to be talked to in the Utah Senate, I think, whether or not we should be buying medication like hydrochloroquine, whether that's appropriate. Someone that has some medical background in the Utah Senate should be involved perhaps with the next task force. Why don't we have a storehouse for supplies the next time we have a pandemic or an outbreak so that we can go and get them without having to rely on China, for example?
That's a good point.
We could be doing some of those things and bringing our supply chains in-state rather than having to rely on other parts of the country. So those would be some of the things that I would do differently or to serve our community better.
Well, one of the things I don't know that people realize, but when you have natural areas of expertise, like yours is medicine, that you see your colleagues, and I saw this sort of from a distance when I was up there, is that a lot of the members of the Senate tended to look to you as the expert in this, not surprisingly. It's sort of like, hey, we all have an opinion on this particular medical issue or policy, and then Dr. Zehnder would come in the room and they'd say, okay, Doc, does this actually work out in practice or in reality the way we think it does?
Yeah, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. Just because you're a physician doesn't mean you know all the medical issues and all the medical answers. However, when you're on the front lines and you're dealing with that stuff each and every day as part of your practice, it gives you some ability to say, you know what, this is what I'm seeing in the community.
Yeah.
This is what I'm seeing working. This is what I'm seeing isn't working. And people that have different backgrounds, people that may be lawyers or educators or real estate or whatever, that all those different perspectives really make a huge difference in terms of coming up with good health policy.
That's great. Well, and this will continue to be, based on what the governor announced this week. We're seeing continual shifts over and over different parts of the state, and so this will keep coming up, and we won't have.
Yes, we now, as many of our listeners may know, instead of the color system,
we have a 3-tiered system, right?
It's a high risk, a medium risk, and then a low risk transmission index, they call it. And so it's based on primarily the percent of cases that are positive, as well as the 7-day rolling average of number of cases per 100,000, and then how full our hospital systems are. So depending upon where your county fits within those criteria, you'll be either a high, medium, or low transmission index.
And that's why currently, like Salt Lake is a high county.
High.
Provo area causing Utah County, I think, to be high as well.
Right.
Davis is medium. So, and I assume that'll shift on a fairly regular basis, right?
It'll shift, yeah. They say you need to stay in one area for 14 days before you're able to move to a different risk or index category. So,
well, and I love to see how dynamic it is, and it'll continue to shift, and hopefully this continues to be driven by the medicine and have healthcare professionals that are there. So as we wrap up here, let me ask you the hardest question, and you're probably good at this because you've done so many doors. But when I was running, one of the hardest things for me was when someone said, "Why should I vote for you?" in 30 seconds, the elevator pitch kind of thing. I found it really hard. I'd say, "Oh, if you got 10 minutes," they're like, "No. 30 seconds. Why should I vote for you?"
It's a very simple question.
So it's a simple question, but sometimes the answer's hard. But for you, what is it?
For this year, for everybody, it's the simple
What's your answer?
question.
What's your answer in like 30 seconds?
What do you need in a
Brian
medical
Zehnder?
pandemic? You need a doctor.
You need a doctor.
How many doctors do we have in the Utah Senate?
None.
0.
Right?
Don't you think it's time that we have at least one? Vote for Dr. Z.
I love it. That's great. And I love that your last name starts with Z because you can say Dr. Z. I've seen the signs and they're very clever and they stand out. And to have a last name like Zehnder, it's much more interesting than a last name like Brown.
Indeed.
It's a good thing you don't have that. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us today with Dr. Zehnder, who's running for Senate District 8. And you should have received your ballot in the mail for anyone who's watching this. If you haven't received it, but you're registered to vote, call the county clerk, get in contact with them, figure out where your ballot is. And if you have it, vote for Dr. Z and get the ballot in as soon as you can. Don't wait. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Derek Brown. We're here today with Dr. Zehnder. Thanks.